Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to World of Warships for our Saturday upgrade and commander build video. Today we're going to be going over the Tier 7 Japanese destroyer, the Akatsuki. It's a torpedo destroyer. We'll get into the commander, upgrades, modules, combat signals, and the works. So first off, what kind of destroyer is the Akatsuki? Well, as I just said, it's a torpedo destroyer, as you have 3 racks of triple torpedoes. Basically, it's giving us a 9 610mm torpedoes with a reload time right now. We've built 76 seconds. So decent. We can actually get that down more because of the commander I'm running doesn't have some other perks. I've moved off my high point commander off to another ship since the recording of Friday's video. 10km range torps, maximum damage 17,233. I think I misspoke in yesterday's video when I said it was 16,000. I think it may have been a buff and I was reading some outdated materials. But you have 9 of these 10km torpedoes, which works out pretty well. So it really comes around that. And you do have, of course, we have 6 guns. We have 627mm guns with a 7.5 second reload time. So it's not really a destroyer meant to get into gun engagements, so thus making her a torpedo destroyer, not really a hybrid, not a gunboat destroyer by any stretch of the imagination. Her armor, pretty standard for a tier 7 destroyer in the game. It's just a combination of 16 and 20mm. Looking at her modules. So again, 127mm guns, 7.5 second reload time. 180-degree turn time of 26.1 seconds. That's kind of one of the things they made bad about this line and compensating for higher, stronger potential torpedoes. But you do have that nice, solid hit capacity of the high explosive Japanese shells. These 127 sitting for 2,150, and the AP being 2,200. See, on the hull, you're going to want to go for hull B first. Akatsuki has a smaller hit point pool compared to other destroyers and quickly gets outpaced, of course, as you go up against tier 8 and tier 9. So we have survivability expert on right now, but it would be like, it would be lower. Here you could see it'd be 14,050 and now 15,550 with survivability expert on the commander. So you don't have a ton of hit points to play with, hence playing stealthy, trying not to take too many destroyer engagements is best. Then I'd recommend going for the torpedoes next. Your stock torpedoes have a faster reload time. They do less damage. I think I was thinking of the stock torpedoes when I said over 16,000. They do less speed. They have a slightly better detectability range. But you can see overall they're just not as great just because we lose speed and we lose damage out on the stock torpedoes. So I prefer having a slightly longer reload time. You can see it goes from 70 to 76 in this example. But over 17,000 damage and our speed being 65 knots, which, we can bump the speed up on these torpedoes as well, and 1.6 detectability range. In terms of your gunfire control system, your stock range is 9.4. Oof. Then you can bump it up to 10.4. So that's better. But you're going to want to go for hull, torps, and then do your gunfire control system last is what I recommend. Speed, 38 knots. If we take Sierra Mike flag, then we're going to be talking about 39.9 knots. So that's very incredibly good. And we haven't talked about our 8% engine boost yet. Another thing I meant to mention in terms of her hit points, if we take the Charlie Kilo, we're going to go up from 6 to 16,350 points. And we even have certain commanders in the game that have an enhanced skill on the survivability expert, so we could push this up a little bit further, even past 16,500 at least. In terms of the upgrades here, you're going to want to take main armaments mod 1. This just reduces the risk of your main battery and torpedo tubes becoming incapacitated by negative 20%, improves your survivability by plus 50%, and reduces the repair time by negative 20%. So definitely recommend going for this. Not the other 2 upgrades here really don't make much sense. When you're looking at your ship, right, you have 3 torpedo tubes throughout the midsection of the ship, and then as you're kiting away, you've got 4 of your 127mm guns facing the rear, and you really want to do what you can to keep them engaged, especially if you have a destroyer hunting you down. The second slot, there's two options you could go for here. First, you have the engine room protection. The risk of the engine becoming incapacitated and your steering gears becoming incapacitated is reduced by negative 20%. The engine repair time and the steering gears repair time is also negative 20%. So in terms of a stock 250,000 credit upgrade, this is the best one to go for. If you have some coal at your disposal, then I would recommend, depending on how much you intend to play Akatsuki, the Engine Boost Mod 1 is incredible to run. It's plus 30% on your action time. So you can see you'd go from 120 seconds to, I think it'd be more closer to 150, something like that. I'm just shooting that off the top of my head. And it works well with this build of the commander, and I'll talk about that when the time comes. But if you want to see it, it's a special upgrade for 17,000 coal. Every once a month you get a 25% off coupon, which drops it down to 12,750 coal, if I recall correctly. Yep, right here. And you can see the dates on when it resets here, if perhaps you've already utilized it. But if you want to play Akatsuki a lot, I would definitely recommend. Third slot, we've gone for the Torpedo Tubes Mod 1. This is increasing the torpedo speed and torpedo traverse speed, plus 20%, and the risk of our torpedo tubes becoming incapacitated, negative 40%. So this has good synergy with this upgrade here, also reducing the chances of becoming incapacitated. So you get more durable torpedoes. I think when you go up to you get 6 slot, then you could take the faster torpedo reload upgrade, but then the chances of those torpedo tubes becoming incapacitated also increases. It doesn't decrease. So you don't have that kind of counterbalance that you would have on the higher like tier 9s, tier 10s super Japanese destroyers in the game. So this is definitely most recommended to run. I mean, otherwise, yeah, you could take aiming systems mod 1, but there's really no point. I mean, it's not a gunboat. It's not even a hybrid destroyer. So just focus on taking the torps. The fourth slot, we had the propulsion modification 1. Time to reach full engine power when accelerating, negative 50%. So really helpful when you're trying to avoid whether it's airstrikes, submarine torpedoes, salvos being fired at you. I do really recommend this the most out of these 4 here. This is not a really need to take the other. So it's pretty straightforward, and you can see that's even what Wargaming is recommending with these little bottom right yellow triangles. In terms of the armament, again, 7.5 second reload time on these 127mm guns. We do 2,150 maximum damage. We have a 9% chance of causing fire on a target. We could technically boost that up to 10% here. We pin 21mm, so keep in mind if you face some other tier 8, I actually don't know if there's a tier 8 destroyer with a 25mm belt. I think there's some tier 9 ones. Then you're going to want to aim your high explosive more towards their bow or the stern on that enemy destroyer. I guess you could use the same metric here for some of the cruisers depending on their armor schemes. Otherwise you're going to want to jump over from your high explosive to your armor piercing, which does 2,200 damage. You get some a chunky 25mm belt destroyer or a cruiser that you can actually get close enough. You can Citadel. It just depends on which cruiser we're talking about here. Torpedoes, again, 76 second reload time currently. 10 kilometer range, 17,233 damage with the upgraded B torpedoes. Speed, 65 knots. We get the speed boosted up by our 3rd upgrade slot. And detectability range of 1.6 kilometers. Depth charges, 4,600 maximum damage. You get 2 charges, 8 bombs in a charge. So if you use them back to back, you're talking about 16 depth charges until they reload, which that reload time is 40 seconds. Other upgrades consider running here. I believe the torpedoes here, I think these have like a 300% chance of causing flooding with the Juliet whiskey. There's a skill on the commander we'll talk about where you can increase the chances of causing flooding. So we'll look at that. So I do recommend running that here on Akatsuki. Just, better chance to blow an enemy cruiser, battleship, or destroyer's damage control party, right? Or if you blow it and then, or they've already used their DCP, then you're going to be getting flood damage, like fire ticking damage, similar, right? Other things I'd run would be November Foxtrot, just reduce the cooldown time on the consumables. So you go with the consumables, which I completely skipped over. You go down from a 40 to 38 seconds and 160 to 152. Yeah, and then you're going to go from a 120 to, I think it's a 114. But to talk about the consumables real quick since I jumped them. Nothing fancy. It's just a standard damage control party for Destroyer, meaning a 5-second action time, and typically it's a 40-second cooldown time, but with the combat signal, drops to 38. We get 3 smokes, 85-second smoke screen dispersion time, action time of 20 seconds, cooldown time going from the 160 to 152. Engine boost, 120-second action time, cooldown time 114 seconds, and we get 3 of them. This is an 8% boost to our ship speed. So that should push us up past like 43-ish, around 43, I think, off the top of my head. Not the greatest at math, but it'd be really close to that roughly. And then when you get 3 of these, you can take Superintendent on the commander to get 4 smokes and 4 engine boosts, but I don't believe that's needed on Akatsuki, and I'll get into that why when we go into the commander build. Other combat signals you can run, I mean, and I'm not really going to mess with my AA, honestly. I mean, it's 40 rating as a whole. You can see continuous damage is 76, damage by shell explosions is 1,330, and the firing range is 5.8. I'm so sorry, I looked yesterday when I talked about the AA, I was looking at the WoW's wiki, and it said 5. But it's 5.8, and I couldn't tell in my replay. So apologies for that, but it's 5.8 here. When you're looking at, let's see here, can I pull up? Your short range AA is 56, your long range is 53. So it's kind of the things that feels kind of crappy about the Akatsuki AA is you don't have medium AA guns, just the short or the long. So it's like, yeah, I don't really feel like investing in that. So then I would take like X-Ray Papa, just to have a plus 10% action time on the smoke. So we go from 20 to 22. So it helps a little more like a team player if you're dropping smokes for your friendlies. Then honestly, for fun, I'd probably take Hotel Yankee last. You know, you might find yourself in a situation where you have to ram an enemy destroyer, or maybe your enemy submarine tries to ram you. Like that's kind of more of a thing now in 2025 World of Warships. Still, damage caused by ramming an enemy, plus 50%. Damage received when ramming an enemy, or you get rammed, negative 20%. In terms of the commander, this is just a commander I've thrown on here. Like I said, I've moved my high point commander off to another ship. But to talk about some other possible commanders you could take, you know, if you, let's say you're grinding up the line of Yamamoto Isoroku, on his destroyers, he just has the enhanced skill of the preventive maintenance, which is a negative 45% versus negative 30%, and I think the secondary AA goes from 15 to 20 here. And then he also has the grease the gears, plus 20% versus plus 15%. So it makes him a little more ideal for Harugumo build, right? You also have this guy, Suzuki and Suzuki. There's 2 different front names. You can see I've been taking them up the line. I don't remember what I'm running on Shimakaze now officially. I think I'm running, yeah, that guy. But these 2, in terms of the destroyer, they have an enhanced survivability expert plus 400 versus the plus 350 for that. And then just because this guy is different, he's like a seasoned commander is what you call these. He also has the HP increase for each ship tier plus 400 versus plus 350. So I'm just kind of spreading out the love here, if you will, and trying to build up more of these commanders. So like you have 2 at 20 and 1 at 16, so we need to finish off getting them to 21 points. But I'd recommend, to be honest, to run one of these 3. That has improved hit points, because that's going to boost your hit points on Akatsuki and make you a little bit more difficult to deal with. So basically what you're going to be doing here, if I pull up my calculator, because it's a tier 7 destroyer, we go 50 times 7, then you're going to get 350 additional hit points. So that pushes you to 16,700. Again, if I did math correctly here. But just to kind of showcase, there's a couple of different builds, different routes you could go. To each their own. You kind of saw a glimpse of one of my Shimakaze commanders there. And so I'm just going to start with the bread and butter build, which 95% of destroyers in the game will take these first 10 points total. So let me just walk through that. So you have preventive maintenance, risk of modules becoming incapacitated, negative 30%. So this is like your main turrets, your torpedo tubes, steering gears, and engine. So that's really good to have here. And you saw how well that actually works on Yamamoto Isoroku commander as well, within his enhanced skill. A 3-point commander, take last stand. The ship remains partially able to sustain speed and maneuverability with the engine and steering gears incapacitated. Important, you want to keep your maneuverability and your speed. 6-point commander, you take the survivability expert to boost your hit points up. So again, we're sitting on 16,350. And then for our 10-point build, we then go for concealment expert, negative 10%. So concealment's not great on Akatsuki, which sucks. You're over 7 when you start out, so getting it down to 6.4 it helps, especially with a lot of the destroyers, whether they're actually lower tier or same tier or higher tier. So a lot of the destroyers have a bit better competitive concealment than the Akatsuki. I think Wargaming just kind of, I'm guessing they gave her a greater conceal radius or detection radius because she is, I've still viewed her as a very potent destroyer here in 2025 and how the game continues to evolve. So, with that being said, where would I go after this? Because when I play World of Warships, I'm pretty on, if I'm being honest with you guys, like, I minimum want a 10-point commander on my destroyer or minimum a 13-point commander, and it usually would look like 10-point or 13-point like this. I struggle playing just like a 3 or a 6-point commander, like because the concealment, like for example Akatsuki, is so huge. Adrenaline Rush enhances your ship's perimeter for each 1% loss. This is a 13-point commander. As you lose hit points, your main battery is going to reload faster, your torpedoes are going to reload faster, so you're going to drop down from 7.5, 7.4, 3, 2, 1. Your torpedoes are going to drop down from 76 currently to 74, 72, 70. And we get the torpedoes reloading even faster with fill the tubes. So then you can see it's going to drop down from 76 to 68.4. So then what you end up having here is something more like with Adrenaline Rush, as you lose hit points, if you lose any, you'd be looking at 65 and getting closer to 60-second reload time on your torpedoes, depending on how much health you lose. So these two skills for 16-point commander have really good synergy. They work really well together. And then most IGN torpedo commanders end up beginning to go their own separate ways at this point. Most won't take Superintendent because, if you're running the engine boost mod I spoke of, it's a longer lasting engine and you get 3. I don't rarely get to my 4th engine boost with the IGN torpedo line. And then smoke, you're trying to stay more dark so the enemy team doesn't really know where you're at. So then there's not as much pressure to smoke up unless, let's say, you have a CV just hunting you. Then that, of course, is a pain, right? But your goal is to avoid detection. So the different directions that a IGN commander might go. I think the classic route would be the radio location. I would argue quite helpful, especially with Akatsuki since she has a 6.4 conceal. What this skill does is that it gives you kind of an idea of the general location of an enemy ship near you. So you can see this little arch here, and it say, hey, there's this guy off to your left, off to your 10 o'clock, 9, 10 o'clock. Be mindful of that, and then you would position your ship. Maybe you turn out. Maybe you're going to get your rear turrets in action, and you're going to reverse into where you think that enemy destroyer might be really close. It just gives you a good idea, even if there's like an example, an enemy destroyer is hunting you down. So this is helpful to have. I quite like it on Shimakaze. It's kind of to give you a more competitive edge when enemy destroyers do decide to hunt you down, or let's say an enemy submarine ends up surfacing nearby and it goes under, and you just see like your radio location flipping all over the place. The other classic route that IGN torpedo commanders will go will be the Swift and Silence skill. Then your main battery reload time gets nerfed. So you go from 7.5 to 7.9, which again, it's not a huge deal. You saw me rarely use the guns just on the in yesterday's video. Like I think I only fired them on the one enemy Akatsuki. Just how those battles went. I mean, I have other games I have to use the guns more, but just how yesterday's game went, you're not firing the guns very much on the IG and torpedo destroyers. But when you're undetected, you get a plus 8% on your ship speed. So it's like, oh, I get an engine boost for free that's always active as long as you're not detected, which in yesterday's game, yeah, I pretty much would have had this almost the 95% of the battle. So this is actually really beneficial. So what you would end up seeing here is that our speed at 39.9, I'll just go ahead and do the math here for us. Our speed here at 39.9 is going to go up to 43, almost 43.1. And then that, with the engine boost active, if I do the math again, you're going to go over 46.5 knots with both the engine boost and swift and silence going. So that's also really good to get around, reposition, fleeing, perhaps faster enemy destroyers. So Akatsuki definitely has a leg up here on the speed in terms in comparison to Fubuki. So that's really helpful. And then, so there's two options there. Then let's just say you took Swift and Silence, that leaves you 1 point, or you took Radio Location, leaves you with 1 point. Then a commander might consider Liquidator. There's chances of causing flooding plus 30%. So I'm pretty sure with these torpedoes, if I looked at the math right, if I'm really far off, I'll edit here on the screen. But I believe it pushes you from roughly a 300% flooding chance to over 400% flooding chance. So it's quite substantial. So if you really want to engage with that more, you can. You know, there could be some who decide, the turret traverse time that's too brutal for me. Like one of the things that kind of lures you away from grease the gears, for example, is if you take radio location, you don't need grease the gears because you have a good idea of where the closest target with you is always. So that's where radio location makes up for that, your lack of turret traverse. That's why, you know, this is one of those classic skills that IG and torpedo commanders will go for, and I've gone for, just to give me a leg up here and helping me deal with potential enemy destroyer, enemy submarine threats. So, you know, you could do Liquidator. I don't really see any reason to go for any of the others. I mean, maybe grease the gears, but really Liquidator, like, make the good thing keep happening. Now, the other route, I think the last route typical IGN commanders will go for is that they want their torpedoes to go faster. So our torpedoes right now with the upgrade are 65 knots. If we take Swift Fish, we get a plus 5% boost on our torp speed. So that's going to go now up to 68 knots. Now what's kind of more substantial about having Swift Fish skill is that it reduces the, time reaction. It lessens it. So like, let's say if you're firing torpedoes at a King George, because your torpedoes go faster, he has less of a reaction time to help avoid the torpedoes because they're traveling much faster. So that's one of the reasons I do like taking the Swift Fish skill on the IGN torpedoes as well. And that's kind of one of the reasons why you might end up building some different commanders in different ways. Then you could be like, yeah, I'll do the full torpedo layout and I'll still take Liquidator. And this would leave you with 2 skill points. So then what might you do with those other 2 skill points? And this is a bit of a tough one because there's not a really straightforward answer here. You know, most of the time you're supposed to be operating undetected. So prior target kind of loses its shine, if you will. You know, you could go for the extra heavy ammunition just to cause more depth charge damage. And that's if you have submarines, but you know, you would have a buff to your artillery that your AP now causes 2,365 versus 2,200 damage. You could make your engine last longer plus 10%, so that could work out well. But otherwise, it's like, you know, it's kind of hard to decide where to put those last 2 skill points in. You know, you're not going to be shooting lots, set targets on fire. So it could be like, you could be cheeky and do that. So enemy incoming fire alert for over enemy ship shooting at you from a distance greater than 4.5, you know, incoming fire alert, look out. But again, you're not supposed to be detected. You can get your consumables off cooldown faster, but it's not a really consumable heavy destroyer. So it's just kind of like, yeah, I'd probably just do this, to be honest, just to have a longer action time on my engine boost and my smoke screen. If I was going to go for this route, otherwise, I think with how the game is anymore, you know, I lean more towards taking radiolocation or taking swift and silence, backed with the liquidator, and just kind of deciding which area do I want to take. Like, you know, you might be like, because you don't have an idea of where the closest enemy destroyer is, you might do something like that, or you end up doing like that. So there's a couple of different options here to take. I think any more these days, I just lean towards this just because the ability to just outrun enemy destroyers and just get around the map a lot faster, because you're operating in silence, you know, silent but deadly. That's kind of the IJN Torp line feel. Then it has some good value here in 2025 in World of Warships. So that being said, I hope you liked today's video. If you did, give this video a thumbs up. If you didn't, give a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you're subscribed, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. Until next time, take care.